doing? Okay, Tiny, come on, come on, come on.
We are continuing to have unusually warm weather here in Montana.
Tiny, come on.
Although there is snow on the ground, it is around 42 degrees right now, so pretty warm for this time of year. Since I did find that enterolith in Pearl's poop the other day, I have started her on a little bit of beet pulp. This is about half a pound dry. I'm not very hopeful that she's going to want to eat this all by itself, so I may end up having to mix a tiny bit of sweet feed in with it. I do have some senior feed around that is a little bit over the suggested amount of sugar for this girl, but a handful or two at this point might be beneficial just to get her to eat the beet pulp.
Tiny. Okay, girl.
Ziggy and Scarlett have spent the whole entire day outside. I let the boys out on the pasture so they could run around and stretch their legs, and it looks like Pete does not want to come in.
Hey.
After I shut the gate to the dry lot, I'm ready to try and catch Pete. Whiplash was a little bit on the jealous side. He always likes getting caught up and spending extra time with me. Pete, on the other hand, still does not like humans very much. I always forget how long I've had Pete, and it's been 7 years since I bought him at the auction. It really doesn't feel like that much time has passed. He has had a really difficult time accepting most of my shenanigans. Where most of the other horses come around pretty quickly once they're feeling better, Pete has always had a little bit more fear of everything that I do. If you haven't seen his original video, you might want to go back and check that out because it does explain kind of why he is exactly the way he is. While Pete is broke to ride now, it is fairly tricky to keep him on a regular schedule. Even after all of this time, he still gets scared of some pretty minor things. He is not too tricky to catch, but there are a few days where he gets really, really anxious once he gets the halter on him, and you'll be able to see it in this video. I make sure to give him the proper amount of time to sniff me and make sure he knows I'm not going to hurt him. But you could see there, even with just the neck rope around his neck, he gets really scared that something bad is going to happen to him. Pete is a very sensitive horse, and the overly aggressive training that he had early on in his life did really severely impact him. Even though I've had him for many years now and I have done a ton of work with him, he just really has never opened up like some of the other horses have. With the recent addition of Pearl to my little herd, I am now at the max amount of horses that I feel comfortable taking care of. For the last couple of years, I've really focused solely on at-risk horses. Typically, once they're rehabbed, there are a bunch that are able to be rehomed and they get snatched up rather quickly. Over the last 10 years or so, I have accumulated a few that do have pretty special needs. Horses like Pete and Goose are very tricky to handle for the average horse person. Most professional horse trainers would not waste their time putting the effort it takes to get these guys gentled down either. I have found that horses like Pete and Goose do really well with a pretty basic daily routine where there are no surprises. While I would love to continue doing a lot more at-risk horses, at this point, since I am so full, I will be shifting a little bit to a more training-based approach to the horses that I already have here. Since I have owned Pete for so long, I do have a pretty good idea of how his tiny little horse brain works.
Come on,
Being
Pete.
so scared and sensitive, Pete just takes a little bit of extra
brave,
time
Pete.
to warm up to whatever it is that we're doing. Each one of our sessions starts off pretty much the same. Right now, Pete is very tight-lipped about what is going on. Even though Pete looks like a fairly normal horse right now, his autonomic nervous system is in a sympathetic mode. Over the years, Pete has gotten a lot better at controlling his fear, but he is very nervous right now. As soon as Pete is feeling a little bit more comfortable, you will be able to see exactly when he switches over to that parasympathetic response. After a few minutes of normal brushing, Pete finally decides that he is not in imminent danger. While licking and chewing can be a positive sign in a lot of horses, you do have to take into consideration the fact that before the licking and chewing happened, these horses feel like they were in real danger. As soon as Pete does feel more relaxed, I will give him a little treat just so he makes a positive association with the relaxation that he's feeling right now. Even a normally stress-free experience like simply being brushed is stressful for Pete. Every time I move on to a new task, he does get a little bit back into that heightened state of fear. He does take a little bit more time to handle and some more understanding around new things, but for the most part, Pete is able to control his fractious mind a lot better now than when I got him. A lot of times when I buy a horse like Pete at auction, the owner will say the same thing. This horse was really calm and quiet, and then all of a sudden they went crazy. There are tons of signs that you can observe when you're working with a horse that is overly fractious or fearful. Pete does give off a lot of signs that he is uncomfortable, and if these signs are ignored, I could see how he could have some really explosive behavior. Pete is one horse that I never hard tie. He has pulled back before, and sometimes he just gets really claustrophobic and scared, so I've just got the lead rope wrapped around the stall front today. Pete has had his feet done a lot since I've got him. He did have really flat kind of paddle feet when I first bought him. For the first probably 2 years I had him, he did get his feet done by a regular farrier. While he didn't have any really terrible experiences with the farrier, he never really got the opportunity to relax just because they do have a lot of stuff to get done in one day and they can't be dilly-dallying around with a horse like Pete who needs a lot of time and understanding to switch back into that parasympathetic mode. As I trim Pete's feet today, if he gets too nervous or is a little bit scared about something we're doing, I can just take a break and let him stand and think about what's going on for a while. As soon as he gets back into a more relaxed state, I can continue on with his trim. Pete's feet typically do not grow very fast, but it's kind of exciting to see that with this warmer weather, the horses are continuing to grow a lot of foot. I have never had to put shoes on Pete. He has really nice hard feet, and we don't really do anything that would warrant the use of shoes at this point. He has really good conformation, so he is pretty easy to trim and keep balanced. Really, the hardest part about trimming Pete's feet is making sure that he stays comfortable with everything that we're doing, even though he's had it done lots and lots of times before. Here is what his foot looks like before I do the finishing touches on it. He's got a really strong hoof wall and a nice big frog, and all those things lead themselves to him being able to stay barefoot year round. When I finally get my own place, one of the things that I'm going to be really excited for is an extra wide aisle. Pete is not that big, he is 15'1", and it's surprising that Scarlett is just an inch shorter than him right now. I have a feeling that she's probably going to be at least 16 hands, and inside this tiny little barn aisle, it is a little bit of a tight squeeze for her. Compared to my other horses, Pete really doesn't take that much longer to get his feet trimmed. He just gets a few little breaks in between. As long as I keep a pretty close eye on how he's doing mentally, he really is no trouble to trim these days. Typically, by the time we're on the second foot, Pete is fully relaxed into the activity for the day. He is really good about holding up his feet, which makes my job so much easier. Pete probably takes about twice as long to trim as the other horses, so instead of about 15 to 20 minutes, he takes maybe 40 minutes to trim. And most of that time is just me standing around letting him relax. Since I do own Pete and I'm not really on any sort of timeline, I have plenty of time to dilly-dally around with him as he needs. He got a little bit extra nervous when I went to finish his other foot, so I took the rope off of the stall front and put it over him so I didn't get clotheslined in case something went awry.
Here, Pete. Here, Pete.
I decided that I was just going to trim his front 2 feet today. It is getting a little bit later in the day and I do have quite a few things to get done before the sun goes down.
A few more. Okay, Pete. Come on, Pete.
Compared to the other horses out in this pasture, Pete has a very different mind. Little Gus, Stewie, and Whiplash all are cow horse bred, and Pete is bred to be a barrel horse. Pete is definitely a bit more reactive, and the other boys are a tad more cerebral. They try to include Pete in their fun and games, but Pete really just doesn't understand what's going on most of the time. I'm still hopeful that one of these days Pete will just figure it out and he'll become more integrated into this little herd. I think because Pete is scared of so many things, he just can't relax enough to take part in their shenanigans.
Stewie.
got about half an hour until the sun goes down completely, and I'm trying to get myself together. After locating my lost glove, I'm gonna head over and give all of the horses their dinner hay. I am getting a special delivery tonight that I'm pretty stoked for, so hopefully it'll get here before the sun goes down. This is a purchase that has been a long time coming, and I'm so excited it's finally here. I'm really hoping that this is going to save me so much time throughout my day with chores and feeding. I know a lot of you guys have been really worried about my spine and all of the work that I have to do with these horses, so this should offer a little bit of relief from some of the more heavy lifting that I do. I think I'm most excited about how many turds I'm going to be able to fit in the back of this thing. I don't really have very many chores left to do this evening, so I'm just going to do a test run with a little bit of grass hay for the boys. I had a feeling that Scarlett would not be very excited about seeing something like this zip past her, so it might take a while for the horses to get used to it. As I head out to the boys, they are a little bit surprised to see this new piece of equipment zipping around. Just to get them a little bit more used to it, I am going to swing around and make another pass. Pete seems to be the only one that is really concerned about my welfare this evening. The other boys just went right back to munching on their dinner. This is going to be super handy to feed all of the horses in the morning. I think I am going to start putting all of their hay in the big rubber buckets so I can kind of portion it out in the morning and hopefully not get as covered in tiny little alfalfa particles as I have been. The alfalfa this year is a bit more dry than it usually is, so it is really hard to peel off and get in the right portions without getting completely covered. It looks like these giant rubber feed tubs are going to fit perfectly in the back. It does look like the only one who is still concerned about me is Pete, so it may take a little bit longer for him to feel okay with the new piece of equipment zipping around. At the beginning of last year, I did make some goals for myself. One of them was trying to post 3 videos a week, which I've been able to do for the most part, except for one small section at the end of the summer where I just felt a little bit too burnt out to keep up the schedule. The other thing that I really wanted to do was to hit 100,000 subscribers, which I did do. The third thing I wanted to do before I invested in this new piece of equipment was to go 100% full-time on YouTube, which I have been doing for a few months now. None of this would have been possible without you guys, so thank you so much for continuing to tune in and see what's going on with the horses. While Huckleberry has been spending a lot of time at home, I wanted him to see the new wheel, so I called up my husband to have him brought over so he could check it out. Huckleberry is a total passenger princess. He loves riding in side-by-sides, and he was pretty excited to take this new one for a spin. It did look like he was a little bit concerned about my driving at one point, but overall I think this doggo approves. It's probably going to take some time for me to get used to using this new piece of equipment, but the first feeding with the feed tub seems to have gone off pretty well with the boys. I will be really interested to see if they actually leave the feed in their little pans. I am testing out another stall mat that I put in their dry lot. This one does have some grip on it, so hopefully it won't be as slippery in the winter. These big feed pans do seem to be perfect for holding the exact amount of hay that these boys need. Since I am portioning out all their meals, I think I'll probably be able to put their ration balancer right on top and only feed them once in the morning and once at night.
Good boys. Good boys. They're all the same, stud man. They're all the same, buddy.
When I come back to check on these boys about 15 minutes later, it looks like they have completely pushed all of the hay out of their little buckets.
Whip.
It really is a lot more beneficial to the horses to be eating right off of the ground. This time of year, the ground is really frozen, so they can just eat up all of the little pieces of hay from the top.
Peter. Pete. Scratch you, buddy. Oh, Gus.
The little poop sled I bought earlier in the summer to clean out the dry lots was kind of a bust, but I'm thinking now with the new machine I might be able to actually use it.
Come on, Tiny. Tiny!
I know a lot of you guys miss seeing Prim on the channel, but I assure you she is still here hanging out with Frisco Bill.
No scratching.
I wanted to test out exactly how many turds this thing can hold, and I think I maxed out this morning. While this is a little bit trickier to get in small spaces than the four-wheeler, one thing that I am super excited about is the hydraulic dump bed. You don't really realize how hard it is on your body until you have to clean up hundreds of pounds of turds every week, but this little bed is going to make it so I don't have to be continually dumping out wheelbarrows or my little poop sleds. The boys are still pretty intrigued by it, but I think after a while they will definitely get used to it. I did want to thank you guys one more time because it really is all of your eyeballs on my videos that make something like this possible. As I look towards the new year, I have a lot of big plans for the channel, and hopefully you guys will stick around to see what's coming next. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.